us out to the company store. Hey, hey, yeah.
Well, good evening, everyone. This is John Harris, and we're back on with Radio Free Norfolk. Dustin's away, so we thought we'd go in a different direction. Tonight, I thought we would do an Artist in Profile series, and my special guest tonight is a local artist, and her name is Meredith Wood. Welcome, Meredith.
Thank you.
So why don't you start off by telling our listeners a little about yourself?
Well, I'm not native to Norfolk County. I moved here about 12 years ago, and I didn't start doing anything artistic in this area until 7 years ago when I started with a play at the Lighthouse Theatre. Actually, that's not true. I started by doing the Norfolk Has Talent contest. And from there, I went to do theater at the Lighthouse Festival Theatre. And I started with The Odd Couple, which was fun for me. The female version of The Odd Couple, where the main characters are women instead of men, and instead of the Pigeon sisters, you have these two brothers instead. So the rules are switched gender-wise, and it was a lot of fun. And
well, before we go on to that, let's back up a little bit. So you actually performed on the stage, and there's a bit of a story about how you got onto the Lighthouse Theatre stage. So you should probably tell that story.
Okay, so I performed this song at Norfolk Has Talent, and it was called The Alto's Lament. But instead of just standing at the microphone and singing a song, I actually had all these actions that I did, and it's a song about an alto singer, which I am not, I'm a soprano, who is always stuck singing the harmony. And so she's complaining, she's lamenting about these roles, and she does these different voices, and she makes herself sound really boring when she's doing these alto parts, but then she sounds really animated when she's just begging for the chance to do a lead role. And it's a super fun song, but completely unlike anything else you saw at Norfolk Has Talent. And for the rest of my life, I will remember when I finished my song, the guy that was the MC came out, and he just had this perplexed look on his face. And the only thing that he said was, well, that was different. And I was just like, different? I put my best stuff in that. I didn't say that, but that's what I was thinking. And so somebody whom I have come to know and have actually acted with, his name is Richard Dupp, and he's a great local talent as well. And he approached the artistic director at the Lighthouse Theatre, who is Derek Ritzel, and said, they just talked about this performance I had done. And then Derek contacted me and asked me, do you do theater? Are you interested in theater? Which was funny because I had done theater for years and years. And so that's how I got on that stage. It's just doing that song and then having that conversation over the phone, and then from there it's just kept going.
Well, it's an interesting branch off voice. So you say that you've done theater before. Mm-hmm. So I guess we'll start with, how did you get to Norfolk? So suddenly you show up in Norfolk. So how did you get to Norfolk?
Well, I am married to a very talented IT technician who has this uncanny ability to just keep moving forward in his career, and he's just fantastic. And his talent was recognized by his employers, and then what started out as a contract position turned into a full-time job over at the local plant. And so he was traveling, I'm going to say, an hour and 20 minutes to work. We should
probably just admit that I'm your husband.
Yes, you are.
It'll make things a lot easier.
Yes, you are.
All right.
And so, your commute went from an hour and 20 minutes, and you had two small children at the time. One was...
You can say we had small children.
We had small children. Goodness.
Well, now that we've admitted it, then you just might as well just go.
All right, I'll fess up. We share children. So our 1-year-old and 3-year-old weren't getting very much time with you. And we didn't like that. You were driving over an hour every day to work and over an hour every day to come home. And so we moved up here, and it turned an hour and 20-minute drive into 17 minutes.
That was a good commute. So as a branching point, I guess we could branch off a little bit now. So before we came to Norfolk, we met in a professional theater company. You traveled extensively through the United States. You traveled in Canada? No, Mexico.
Yes.
Mexico. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like?
Traveling in Mexico?
No, traveling. Oh, well, sure. Traveling in the United States, traveling in Mexico, performing in a touring musical unit. Just talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Well, I was fresh out of high school and I knew that I wanted to do theater, but I didn't really know how to get into theater. And all my friends were sending out their applications to colleges and universities and they were all getting responses back. And they were saying, where are you going to go, Meredith? And what are you going to do? And I was just like, you know what? I just don't feel that. I don't know what I'm going to do. And then somebody that I knew, a family friend, actually joined this theater company and told me about it. And I thought, that's what I want to do. So I went to Los Angeles and I did training with this company. And then my first tour, so the tours are about 4.5 months. My first tour was in Mexico and I didn't speak any Spanish. I had taken, I think, 6 group lessons with a group of people who had wanted to get a passing familiarity with Spanish. And I had told them that I had 6 lessons of Spanish, which unfortunately they thought meant I had taken 6 years of Spanish. And so they assigned me to the Spanish team. And so, I met my unit leader and my unit leader was like, I'm just so excited you already know Spanish. And he said, so, where did you study it? And at that point I said, what? No, I've had 6 lessons in Spanish. And his eyes got huge. And he said, okay, well, you know what? I'm not going to tell anybody. So I went down and I learned all my plays phonetically because I didn't speak the language at all. So they would speak my line to me. They would tell me what my line meant and I would learn how it sounded with a Mexican accent. And then I would go up on that stage and I would perform these plays. And the plays were, there were small short plays of like 5 minutes all the way to plays that were 20 minutes long. And, hundreds of different scripts because all our plays were thematically based. So it was a thrill. And I had never really been out of Canada before. So, being in the States is a foreign country, but being in Mexico was a completely different experience and completely foreign, but I loved it.
At least they gave you someone who spoke Spanish. When they sent me to Sweden, we had to learn our plays with English speakers. So they gave us tapes that we had to listen to. So we didn't even have anyone who could help us day to day. So you're in Mexico. Mm-hmm. You've never been outside of...
I took a school trip in grade 9 or something to Vermont. But other than that, I'd never been out of Canada.
Oh, yeah, so you've never been out of Canada. What was your experience like? So you spent 6 months there.
A little less. It was about 4.5, almost 5 months. And my experience was wonderful in many ways, but it was really hard for me because I had to grow up really quickly. Mm-hmm. I had always lived at home and I'd always had my family is very close, and not just my sisters and my parents, but my grandparents and my uncles and my cousins and I. We're close. And to leave all that behind and go to a foreign land was, I wasn't scared. It wasn't scary, but it was a real growth point because I had to learn to act like a grown-up. And I had never really had to do that. Honestly, at that age and stage in my life, the biggest responsibility I'd had was having my own car and driving my sisters where they needed to go. Mm-hmm. But I had to take care of my own money. I had to take care of my own safety and my arrangements and traveling from one place to another and staying with people and learning how to interact as an adult, because that's how they saw me, with people who didn't even speak my language, was hard, really, really hard.
Well, the other thing is in this theater company, the performances we had to do were often in a day, multiple performances. Mm-hmm. What was your performance schedule like?
So I covered all of Mexico, Distrito Federal, their main state, because Mexico is actually the United States of Mexico, and all almost all of the states south of that, all the way up the Yucatan Peninsula to Cancun. So we had a lot of states to cover and 4.5 months to cover them. So you would perform a play and then you would travel around, and you had to actually find people who would book performances for the next team that came in. So not only was I an actor, but I was a booking agent and a travel agent, and I had to do all of those things as well, and balance the finances. I mean, when you think about what I had to learn how to do at that stage of my life, it was astonishing I ever learned it. Yeah. So like we would perform, and then we would go around and we would talk to people in the area to book performances for the next team who may or may not be us. We didn't know. And then you had to book your travel arrangements to another state. Sometimes you had to travel to a completely different state, and you had to make arrangements with the people with whom you're going to perform. You had to make arrangements of where you were going to sleep and where you're going to stay, because we were billeted. We didn't stay in hotels, and we didn't have a bus of our own. We used public transportation, and we stayed in the homes of the people who had booked our shows.
Well, that was one interesting thing I wanted to get to, is that so you're staying with people in Mexico. You don't really speak Spanish. But you have to learn Spanish. So learning Spanish must have been just an absolute necessity. But then, you did pick it up very quickly, didn't you?
I don't know if I picked it up quickly. I mean, when you're immersed in a language and you have no option but to speak it, I think everybody picks it up faster. So I don't know if I picked it up quickly in general, or I just picked it up quickly because I had to. Well,
you came back in 4 months speaking pretty fluent Spanish.
I don't know. Conversational, not fluent.
Well, still, you work over at Amiga's and it gets you by. You did really well. So.
Yes. And I retained a lot of it because, you learn it in that intense environment, and you have to keep it.
So after Mexico, then you came back to Los Angeles. We came back to the head office. And you were reassigned to a musical unit.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I did the one tour in Mexico, and I did 4 tours in the States. And all of my tours in the States were done with the musical theater units. And that meant that as you're traveling, you actually travel with your vocal coach, who is part of your team. And so you rehearse your songs every day, and they work on your voice and your tone, your ability to blend, your ability to stand out. It was another very intense experience, but in a completely different way. And you had to learn how to be part of, most of the time they're quartets. So, you're singing either melody or you're singing harmony. You have to be able to do both.
So you're touring, and at the same time you're doing vocal instruction, vocal coaching the whole entire time. You're learning plays, and then you're learning the musical numbers that you have to do. What was the turnaround for one of those? I know for me, what I mean by that is, so sometimes when we have done local theater plays, you get 4 months to prep for a play.
Oh, I wish.
So when we were on the road, on the musical unit, what was your normal turnaround for a play or a musical number?
You are learning new plays almost every single day while you're prepping the plays that you're going to be performing in a few days. So in your spare time, of which you have very little, you are learning a new play. At the same time, you keep running and running. You rehearse every day. You practice your music every day. And you also have when you're touring in the States, you have your own vehicle to maintain. Like, we didn't use public transportation. So you're also a mechanic. And I had to learn all about vehicles at the same time, because if something breaks on your vehicle, you have to be able to fix it.
Yeah. What I know was when I was in Sweden, we were doing school shows, and we were doing 6 shows a day in the Swedish public schools in English. And backstage, while you were waiting, you were learning your lines for the next show that you were going to do, which might be at a prison or a nursing home or a church or a
military base,
wherever. I'm sure that you had stuff that was very similar to that as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, when I say very little free time, I really mean it. I have a friend who actually owns the Mexican restaurant here in town, and she has an expression that I have just taken to heart, and I think it's absolutely true. She says, if something's important, you make the time. And if it's not, you make an excuse. Well, you had to make the time because it was so important. So, I mean, you didn't even have an hour of free time in your day. While you were eating, you were typing up reports, because you had to also put in your own reports talking about the plays that you did, so that the next team who comes through doesn't do the same plays. And I mean, there's no free time. You have to work really hard.
And like you mentioned, we did the finances, we did the booking, we
The
did
vehicle maintenance.
the public relations. We did.
Yep.
Like we were a 4-man professional theater team on the road doing itinerant work. So it was crazy. Okay, so that kind of brings us up to the kind of that rich background that you had in experience wise. So when you were younger, what kind of led you to music? What led you to know that you were going to be a musician? Or how did you fall in love with music? What was the family life like?
Well, my family is very musical. As I said, we would sing. The whole family would sing around the campfire. That was totally normal. But my dad was in a professional pipe band when he was a younger man. And so he has always had music. I mean, he had accordions and guitars and harmonicas and his bagpipes. And when I got to be, I don't even know, I think I might have been in grade 7 or 8, I started having piano lessons. My mom had a really good friend who was an amazing pianist, and she taught, and she took me in as a student, and was just a brilliant teacher. So easygoing and made music so much fun. And when I was in public school, I had trouble with some of the other kids in my grade in elementary school. And my music teachers, every one of them, were just fantastic people. And I think when you have an amazing teacher, that you develop a love for that subject. So I had the support at home. I had these fantastic teachers at school. And I mean, we grew up watching musicals. That was part of our family night. Everyone would pick a movie, we'd vote, and almost every single week you'd have a musical in there. Mm-hmm. And I think that's how, I mean, music was just always a part of my life. Now, when it comes to when I decided that that's what I wanted to do, I have 2 specific memories. One of them, I'm in elementary school, and I am going to say it's before grade 6. I'm sitting in a circle. All the kids in my grade are sitting in a circle, and they're going around the circle. What do you want to do when you grow up? Or who do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm sitting there. I'm like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Who do I want to be? I want to do something with music. I want to sing. I want to act. This one girl named Karen says, I want to sing when I grow up. That's what I want to be. I want to be a singer. And it goes around. It comes to me. And I was so disappointed that she had said it first, because I felt like, oh, I'm just saying the same thing. But I remember saying, I want to do the same thing. I want to sing and I want to act when I grow up. And there was a show on TV called Family Ties. Mm-hmm. And the mom in that show, her name is Meredith. And I remember watching this TV show and watching the credits scroll by and seeing her name go by, Meredith Baxter Burney. And I was just like, oh, someday that's going to be me. Someday my name's just going to scroll by on something, Meredith Wood, right there. Just like Meredith Baxter Burney.
We talked about it in the sound check, but here in the interview, your family would often on family campouts have very musical experiences around the campfire. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Do you want me to tell the same story or a different story?
Well, it's up to you. I think sure, tell that one, and then there's also that there's a ton of those stories, so you choose some. Okay,
well, we would have the whole family, my cousins, my uncles, my aunts, my grandparents, and even the people who, don't think of themselves as singers would sing, because every year it would be the same songs over and over again, like Yogi Bear and Patutita and these really silly, fun kid campfire songs. And then my parents would lead into some musicals, and as it got later, people would branch off and do other things, but we would stay singing and singing until sometimes the park ranger would come and say, so, we have this rule about noise after a certain time of night, and you're violating this rule, and we need you to stop. But we would have times when people would come from their campsites because they would hear the family singing, and they'd bring their lawn chairs and sit just to listen to us, or just come walking by with their dogs or whatever and come and say, oh, we're just enjoying it. We're sitting over at our campsite. We're listening to your family sing, and we're just loving it. So, I mean, I have so many incredibly positive memories.
Well, I've been at many a family campout where that happened. Mm-hmm. So as you got older and you had children, our children have basically the same type of experience, though. When we've gone to family campouts or to the campout at your uncle's house, that tradition still carries on.
Yes.
So bring us up to, so that kind of gives a brief history of kind of the musical background. So then you land in Norfolk because your husband drags you to Norfolk. And then you end up on a stage, and you end up on the Lighthouse stage. So what was your first experience like there at the Lighthouse, the community theater?
Well, I had a new baby at the time. She was about 6 months old, I guess. She was very young. And when I had been offered this role, I said to the director, Derek, I said, I would be happy to do this, but you have to realize that I am a breastfeeding mother, which means I have to bring my baby to rehearsals. And I said, she's little. She's not going to be a problem. And she wasn't. She was great, and everybody just adored her. But I said, she's not even walking yet, but I need to have her there because otherwise I can't. I can't go away from my baby for hours and hours and hours at night because I am her source of nourishment. And he was super cool, actually. He said, well, I've never had this experience before, but I'm willing to give it a shot. Okay. And he did. He let me come, and I would have this little carrier that I'd strap on the front, and, she'd need to sleep. I'd put her in, I'd rock back and forth a bit. She'd fall asleep, and then we would rehearse. And I'd have this baby attached to the front of me. And everyone would just sort of ignore it. And then if she woke up and she needed to be fed, they would stop rehearsal, and I would go, off a little bit. And they would do, if they had something they could do without me, they would do it without me. And if not, then he would give notes, to the actors while I'm breastfeeding this baby. And everybody was super cool. And I will admit, I was a little nervous because musicals are really my thing. And I have more confidence when I'm up there singing and acting, because I always feel like they'll forgive me if I'm not a great actress because I'm a professional singer. And
yeah, but you have a wealth of professional chops, stage chops behind you. I mean, I know we've talked about this before, but you've got decades of experience of on stage, not musical experience on.
I know. I just feel more confidence when I'm in a musical.
But when I saw you up there, you could hold your own.
Well,
I get what you're saying, and I understand that you feel confident there. But you have decades of experience on just straight stage work. Where, like myself, I have no experience at all in theater, in musical theater at all. So the moment that I try to branch out there, I'm brand spanking new.
Okay, I see what you're saying, and it's different. That's true. But I had been, my goodness, more than 5 years completely out of theater. And then the first play that I did was a non-musical play. And actually it was almost 8 years out of theater.
Which is odd for Lighthouse, for the community theater play, because most of them are musical theater.
I don't think that they have always been so. I know they're doing a lot of musicals now, but I believe,
really?
I think that they, I don't 100% know, but it seems to me that I had heard that they hadn't done a lot of musicals at that point. But I enjoyed it. I have this funny memory. Richard Dupp and I are sitting on a couch at rehearsal, and he is supposed to be the love interest of my character. And we're rehearsing, and it's this flirty moment where we're supposed to be flirting, and out from this little pouch that is strapped to the front of me comes this itty bitty little hand that reaches up and just touches the side of his face. Which, of course, breaks the whole mood of the rehearsal, but it was just so cute. And he remembers it, too. He's like, oh, I just remember that moment.
So that play was very successful.
I think so.
It was very successful. So that kind of launched you into theater locally.
Yes. Yes, I did. After that, they did a musical. They did The Drowsy Chaperone, where I got to do a tap routine.
It's been a while since you were able to do tap routine.
Oh, well, I got to do a little bit in Mary Poppins, but it was just like 4 bars.
But prior to Drowsy Chaperone.
Oh, yes. Well, when I was in the theater company in the States, every summer, they offered these little courses you could take. So one I took was vehicle maintenance because I just had no idea. You could do like set design and lighting, and you could learn
Stage
all
combat.
this. Yeah. I wish I could have taken that one. All those things. And one of the ones that I took was tap. So that's where I started doing tap and just loved it. But then when I came up to Canada, I started teaching voice and piano. And then from that school, which is called Addison's, which is in Oakville, I went to another school called Studia Pavas in Mississauga, where it was actually a dance school that had started teaching vocals to kids who wanted to do, to be triple threats. And so I would teach piano and vocal there. And while I was there, I took tap again and just loved it. So I got to do this whole routine when I was in the Drowsy Chaperone, and it was so much fun.
Yeah, that was amazing. So then what was the play that you went into after Drowsy Chaperone?
I am not 100% sure.
But soon after, okay.
Because I think it was you and I in the play here that was next.
Up Barefoot in the Park.
I think so.
Okay, that's an interesting one. That was the first time in the whole time that we've been married or that we've known each other that we've been able to be on stage together.
That's right. We have never shared a stage until then.
And it was really interesting. Like, we got off book really quickly.
Yeah, you have to learn that when in our company, you had to be able to pack a play into your brain so quickly that
within days.
Yes.
Not months. So in days, and then you'll be in a park, and then you'll be doing the polish and the flow, and then you kind of do the last one, walk on stage and do it.
Yes, and our director Larry just thought that was hilarious that you and I were off book so quickly.
We were doing like a month and a half of full runs, which is unheard of in community theater. So after that, you go in and you're starting to get other roles, like you were in
Seussical the Musical.
Seussical the Musical.
Yes, and I got to be the sour kangaroo, where I got to sing in a style that I don't know that I've ever used before.
Well, okay, so that's an interesting thing. Also, then the Lions started coming around and asking to sing all sorts of things.
The Lions Club.
So they weren't all sorts of things that's not in your particular style.
Oh my goodness. Every year they ask me to do a song and they're like, oh, you're going to love it, Meredith. And it's usually a song I've never heard before and a style I've never done before.
So you did Seussical, and where'd you go from there?
From Seussical, I went back to the Lighthouse Theater, and I did A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum.
That was a really fun play. How'd you like it? I thought you did extraordinary in that role.
Oh, thank you. I was intimidated.
I know.
Yeah. See, I played the role of Pseudolus, and that role was performed by Nathan Lane on Broadway. I mean, how do you measure up to that? And then there was a female Pseudolus, but it was Whoopi Goldberg.
Yep.
Like, I can't be as funny as Whoopi Goldberg or Nathan Lane. And I was very intimidated, and I'm just really blessed that Derek was my director, because he was so reassuring. and I had this scene where I had to be just totally ridiculous, and he knew, even though I didn't say it, he knew I was having a really hard time with it, and he just said, hey, don't worry about it, it'll come, when it's ready, it'll be there. But and you have to make it your own. Like, I can't be Nathan Lane, I can't be Whoopi Goldberg, I have to make it my own. But still, you want it to be exceptional. Yeah, exactly. And actually, you gave me good advice in that one, because I was doing a song. I was in our room and I'm practicing this song, and I said, so there you go. What do you think? And you said, well, technically it's very good. It's a very well sung, professional vocalist sounding song. And that's all you said. And I went, like, what kind of compliment is that? Obviously there's something you're not saying that you want to say. And then you said, when Nathan Lane sings a song, he doesn't have a gorgeous voice, he doesn't he is performing that song. He's communicating that song, and you're not doing that. You're just technically singing the song well. And I really appreciated that, because it changed the way I approached those songs, and I enjoyed them more once I changed them.
Then you came out of the room, and right outside our room was the piano, and then you started tinkering around with it, and then you found it, and then off you went.
Yeah, that was good and fun, and it improved my performance.
I think that's one thing nice about having two theaters in the house, or two actors in the house, is that we have the opportunity to come to each other and say, you know, we're stuck on something. Mm-hmm. When I was in Lend Me a Tenor, there were some things that I was stuck on, and I came and asked you for advice. And the same thing, I got, you know, this nice, good sound advice and, you know, the map forward, right?
Do you remember what those things were?
I think I was struggling with the character because I didn't like the character, that the way it was, the way I had to portray it. And then we talked about it, and we found a character that I could like, and that, you know, you wanted the girl to end up with the guy at the end, right? But it was that process of, you know, you're just kind of stuck, and then where do you go and who do you talk to? The nice thing is you can go to your spouse and say, what do I do here? Because I'm stuck. Since we've both been on stage for decades. So.
Yeah. I remember one more thing about funny thing happened on the way to the Forum was opening night, 20% of our cast had laryngitis. And not like this raspy or uncomfortable, like they had no voice. We had to cut songs from the show. And then we had one of our actresses end up very sick. She couldn't even go on stage. So one of our other actresses had to learn her role overnight, including her song and dance. And then when somebody who worked at the theater had to step in and take the role of the actress who had moved up, and like through the whole run, the only show that we did as we had rehearsed was closing. We had all our actors, everybody in full voice.
Well, the fun thing, kind of the behind the scenes thing, is when that went down, the one person went down, the other person had to step up. The phone call came to you in a panic. You brought them over here. You were at the piano helping them work through the music, work through all that stuff. I got the kids out of the way, trying to give you guys space to figure it out. I mean, that's just how theater, especially on the road, that's how theater was for us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, here, you know, you have 4 months to prep and go through, so it's a bit of an anomaly. But men on the road, like, you know, who knows what would happen?
Yep. You just roll with it.
Or you roll into town, no performances, you don't got anything to do. All of a sudden, you got 3 performances that you picked up out of the blue. What plays do we know? We know this one, we know this one. Okay, and go. You know? Mm-hmm. Then you made your money, put gas in the tank, and kept going. I mean, it was crazy. But so, I mean, some people hear those stories and they think they're insane, but we lived that life for, 5, 6, 7 years?
You did, yeah. I wasn't as long, but... so that's why when I did Mary Poppins, they had 2 Marys.
Understudy, yeah.
Yeah, I had an understudy. I had an understudy because if Mary Poppins loses her voice on opening night... Yeah,
you're in trouble.
Yeah, and I mean, now when I was in A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, I didn't lose my voice. I wasn't one of those ones who did, but you just don't know, right? You can't control that sometimes. And I think even though everybody, like the director and the stage manager, they handled that when The Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. They handled that so skillfully, but obviously it scared them because they didn't want that to happen again.
Yeah.
So they made sure that Mary had an understudy when we did Mary Poppins.
So then you did Mary Poppins.
Yes, I did. And I really, really wanted that role. I wanted that role so badly, I almost wanted to throw myself in front of Derek's car to beg for it. That's how badly I wanted it.
I remember practicing your London accent with you here, running those lines like crazy, prepping for the audition.
I have the advantage, though. My mother's from England, and I have relatives who are from England. And so I have been exposed to the English accent. Not that my mother's accent is very strong, but like my relatives, it is. So I have something to go by.
Yeah, but when you read the children's stories, like they get a whole wealth of characters and different voices and accents, and so
yeah, that's fun.
I can do like, you know, Pacific Northwest, maybe Southern, maybe some Texas, but that's about it. You and your sisters, you guys can do crazy stuff.
We do enjoy it. Although I wish that I had...
Not like Nara crazy.
I was going to say, I wish that I had the skills that Nara has, you know, because she is a voice actress and she can do these amazing accents. But, you know...
You hold your own.
Mary Poppins was... I mean, it's a really great show. And if you've seen the movie Mary Poppins, it is not exactly like the musical.
It's quite different.
Yes. And we actually couldn't do all of the scenes from the musical because it would just be too long, you know, and in this area you have to keep it at a certain time length. But so it's nice because there are some really great songs in the Broadway version. And once in a while, not every time that you do a play, but once in a while you do a play where you develop very close friendships with your fellow thespians. And I would say of all the plays I've done, there are maybe 2 where it's been that tight. And you walk away from that missing those people. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what it was like for you?
Yeah, yes, that's what it was like. I enjoyed the banter because I was a little more comfortable with Mary Poppins than with a lot of my other plays, because I'm starting to get to know the people in this area. And a lot of these actors, they know each other really well. And they've been performing for decades together. And like when I came in with The Odd Couple, I really felt like odd man out.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because when I was in some of the plays, I felt kind of the outsider, but they made you feel very welcome very quickly.
Yes. Oh, they're very welcoming, but you just know you're not... You don't have the time.
Well, we weren't from Norfolk. We didn't have a tie to Norfolk. A lot of these people have been performing with each other for a long, long, long time. We had done a lot of professional work other places, but when you come here, like you said, we didn't know anybody.
Yeah, but when I got to Mary Poppins, I knew so many of these actors. I'd been in plays with so many of them before.
Yeah.
Like the girl who played Michael Banks.
Yep.
She played JoJo in Seussical.
Yep.
And yeah, like some of them I'd been in several plays with them. So that was really nice. But then you had new friendships too. So one thing that I really like about being here is that there is so much artistic talent in this area.
It's kind of crazy. In all the places that we have toured, and all the places we have gone.
And lived, anywhere, the places we've lived.
Yeah, they lived. So I would say Sweden, I would say for me, Atlantic Canada, and then you come all the way into Ontario, go into Alberta or British Columbia or Alaska for you, all the United States, Mexico. This area has a really unique collection of artistic talent.
Yes, and you can go to see community theater in just about every community, but community theater has this label, this stigma attached to it, right? Mm-hmm. But not here. No. This is good community theater. I mean, you got top-notch talent here. It's fantastic. And not just in the theater, but musically, too. Mm-hmm. I mean, as I said, we've had people come in on Wednesdays at Amiga's to play. They are brilliant. But these people, like maybe theater isn't their life or music isn't their life because they have other responsibilities. Like for myself, I have this family that is the most important thing for me. And although I love theater and I love music, it's not the most important thing.
Well, I have my professional career, and for both of us to really pursue that hardcore theater thing, you'd have to give up your jobs. You'd have to be, waitressing or waiting tables.
I think a lot of people don't realize that
until you get a break and get a show.
Yeah, how much actors have to settle in their lives, like what they have to give up. They have to be able to jump up in a moment. Like let's say that you do commercials. You have to be able to go with a phone call. You've got to be able to leave and go do this commercial to Toronto or wherever they need you. Or if you do theater, like you have to be able to rehearse for a certain number of weeks. You have to be able to tour with your play for several weeks. And that's impossible if you have small children or a career. So the fact that we have all this talent here, I mean, really fantastically, phenomenally talented people here who just have taken a different direction in their lives, and the community theater is their outlet. This is where they get to show off that talent, and so you get top-notch theater here. I mean, you have been in a play that was abysmal. and that is honestly, in my opinion, where community theater gets its name. You just had a bunch of people who have no training.
It was not in Norfolk, by the way.
Oh no, it was not in Norfolk.
I walked away from theater for 10 years after that because of that play.
I had done a play. I had done The Sound of Music. Remember?
Yeah, down in St. Catharines.
In St. Catharines.
Yep.
And so that's when I was getting back into theater. And then you did a play and you were like, hey, yeah, let's do theater. But it was this community theater that was, it was so bad. It was like, honestly, the worst play I've ever seen. And that includes anything I've ever seen in a school.
Horrible.
It was so bad. And then you walked away. You were never going to do theater again. I remember how much you hated being in that play. And it was a musical. Do you remember that?
Yep.
And you
And I
were
was-
one of the best singers there.
Oh, that says something.
No, you always sell yourself so short. But anyway, how did we get onto that?
I don't know.
That you had done.
But then I saw you in Lighthouse, and I said, well, if you can have professional production, professional director, professional promotion, sure, I'll come and do theater again. Not a problem. Like, yeah, you bet.
And we used to take turns. Well, we do still take turns.
We'll still take turns. So you do a year and I do a year.
Yeah, that's right. And so you have, I know this is not all about you right now, but like you've performed at the Lighthouse Theater, you've performed at the Simcoe Little Theater, you've performed in Paris.
Yep.
And did you perform in Brantford? I remember you auditioned.
Well, I was going to, but that all fell apart. That was the only show I've been fired from.
That's
And
what
I was very happy about it too, actually.
Yeah. So I think we were talking about how there's so much talent in the area, but you can't, like the talented people here have these lives they live away from theater. But when they get on that stage, that's their moment to shine, to bring what they love sometimes.
Well, you know how Derek has that, the sponsorships, and then you can get invited to the after parties. So you and I went to one of the after parties. I was talking to one of the actors in one of the shows, and we were talking about
professional shows.
The professional shows, and they were talking about settling. And he and his wife had already come to the decision that they will never own a home because they're pursuing this life in theater. And they had some friends that were in Wicked, actually, and they thought, oh, this is great. We're on a high life, we're on the road. And they bought some houses, and then the show left. And then they didn't have a way to pay for their mortgage anymore. So then they had to sell their houses. Well, they kind of watched this, and they said, oh, so this is a reality. We're just never going to be able to own our own home. We're going to be always living in apartments and chasing these jobs. And I know for us, you know, when we did our stint in professional theater and we lived that life, but you know, you get out of that life and you say, well, no, at this point in my life, do I ever want to go back to that? I like the stage part of it, and I like the performing part of it. I don't like the in-between of how do we make the bills work, and how do we pay the mortgage, and how do we, you know, and now we have 4 kids, so I don't think it's a really fair lifestyle to ask them to really go through without any choice. So,
Although vaudevillians did it.
yeah, I guess they did, but anyways.
But we're not vaudevillians.
That's right. Recently, you've been taking on some musical students. Are you hoping to get back into that, or where do you want to go next?
I love to sing. I really do. And I really love to teach singing because I think that there are so many people that have this mentality that if I open my mouth and I make a noise, I'm singing. And then there are people who have this mentality, oh, I'll never be able to sing, and I've never been able to sing. And I just love to get hold of those people and say, don't listen to all those people your whole life long who have said you can't sing. You know, much like somebody who's very dear to my heart tends to feel that he can't sing no matter what. I believe his expression is he sounds like a dying mule. Is that the one you use?
I don't know who says that, but
yeah, I think it's dying mule. And it frustrates me because you have sung to our children to get them to sleep, and you sing in the car, and you have a nice voice, an untrained but nice voice. So people like you, I just love to get my hands on those people and say, here, let's give you a little confidence, a little training, and then send you out.
I know what you're talking about. So one of the plays you were in recently, the most recent one, was Mary Poppins.
Yes.
And that was a bit of a bucket list item for you, if I remember right.
Yes, it is. I have 5 rules on my bucket list, and Mary Poppins is one of them.
What are the other 4?
I want to be the witch in Into the Woods.
Yeah.
I would like to be Millie in Thoroughly Modern Millie.
That one is not really staged anymore. I would love to see that play staged again.
Yeah. I would like to be Calamity in Calamity Jane.
That's another one that's not really...
Well, it's so old, you know, and people are going into the newer musicals, but there's some very, very fun songs in that one. And, you know, Doris Day just died. Mm-hmm. So it is my hope that...
someone will want to remount it.
Yes, in memory of Doris Day, you know, let's do this. And then I'm just going to be like, I want to be that role. I want to be Calamity Jane. And... I would also like, so I've done Mary Poppins, I've done Into the Woods, Calamity Jane, Thoroughly Modern Millie. Well, okay. And it's it's so not going to ever happen. But I would, of course, like to be Elphaba and Wicked, but that's not on my bucket list because I just don't see that as a possibility at all. But I would like to. Oh, I'd like to be Miss Hannigan in Annie.
Oh yeah, that would be a great role.
I would just love to be Miss Hannigan. I think that playing this drunken, maybe not best singer kind of role where you hate kids. That would be a blast.
It would be fun. So that person is just not you at all. So
No.
where are you going to find the inspiration for this?
Well, it's true. I don't drink any alcohol. I don't like the flavor. And when I go to like a karaoke bar or somewhere where I'm going to sing, I'm drinking orange juice or water. But I have a cousin who is, she's actually an adorable drunk. She is super cute when she's drunk, but I see a lot of drunk people when I go to karaoke bars. And I think that you could pull parts of all of them, because although Miss Hannigan is not necessarily a pleasant individual, she definitely has that cute side, like when she's flirting with Daddy Warbucks and, things like when she's singing her songs, she's got that she's just so overwhelmed. But so I would take a little bit of what I've seen from my cousin. I would build that into my Miss Hannigan character.
So one of the things you've been up to recently is that you have your own little band now.
Yes.
So tell us about the band.
Oh my goodness. I never wanted to be in a band. I am not the kind of person who'll go to hear a band. Bands are not my thing. And I have a friend named Rob who is a very good guitar player, and he goes to my church. And one time we were on the worship team together, and after worship one day we were sitting down, we were talking, and he starts playing this song on his guitar. And I said, "Hey, I know that song. That's 16 Tons." And he went, "Actually, no, it's not. It's called I think he said Stray Cat Strut. Does that sound right? Stray Cat, I think." And he and I have extremely different tastes in music. Like, he has been in rock bands all over the place, and I do musicals, right? And I have a bubble. Musicals are sort of my bubble. I don't really branch out of that very much. It's what I really love to listen to. In my spare time, if I'm listening to music, I'm listening to a musical. And
Unless your husband makes you listen to bluegrass.
Yes. Yes, he does that sometimes. Or Celtic music, which I don't mind in small doses.
Celtic music's good.
Or my mother makes me listen to John Denver.
That's unfortunate.
As long as it's Nat Caper Cali or whatever it's called, it's good.
Capercailly's really good too.
That's the worst type of music ever.
Shh.
Sorry.
And so we started talking about music, and he's unlike any other musician that I've ever been friends with, because he likes to jam. He likes to, hey, let's just get together and do music. Let's pull a song out of the sky and just play this song. And I'm like, this is not my thing. This is not my thing at all. I have this friend who is brilliant on the piano. Her name is Heather. And if we're going to get together and do music for even just for fun, it's tight. It's amazing, and she is brilliant. Like, I can put complex music in front of her, and she can just go and play it, right? But he wants to stop and start, and let's try this little thing, and it's so unlike anything I've ever done. I mean, honestly, for other people listening, this may be totally normal, and I've come to understand that perhaps my bubble is a bubble that is unusual in this world, because so many other people that I know, this is totally normal. You like music, I like music, let's get together and play music. And I don't get it. I don't get it at all. So, but he wanted to do this, and I said, okay, sure, I'll give this a try. And then he said, we should get a band started. And I was just like, what? A band? I'm not in high school anymore, who just gets a band started? But yeah, so he plays the guitar and I sing, and that was where we started. And then I'm trying to remember the order. I believe the next was the percussionist, right?
You needed a drummer, so I said,
Yeah.
I got a drummer for you.
Yeah, somebody you had worked with, Bill Varutis, who has been a studio musician, and which means, that you go for people you don't even know and you just play their music in the studio, so it sounds really good on their albums.
But then also he played, people would be coming through and they'd lose some drummer on some tour, and they'd call him up and say,
just like that. Yeah. Yeah, no, he's really, really good. And we don't call him our drummer. I don't call him.
Let's be honest, he's all right. So, no, he's very good.
He's very good. And when people ask about our band, which I secretly think of as a quartet because I can't wrap my head around the word band, but I don't say that this is our drummer. I say this is our percussionist because
He's
he has
extraordinary, yeah.
yes, he has a drum kit and he brings congas and he brings bongos and he has shakers. He's got a shaker from Africa. He's got all sorts of little extra things. He's not just a drummer. He's more than a drummer. And so you had actually recommended him to me.
Well, that's why I recommended him, because he could cover the whole breadth and he's like the styles, and he's been a studio musician
and I said, why would you want to play with us? Like, who are we? And
he's good people.
But he really enjoys it. It makes him happy. He enjoys playing with us. And then we needed a bass player because everyone was like, you need a bass. You don't have any bass. And I thought, bass? I don't know. Wait a minute. How about a cello? So my sister, Meredith Wood, is our cellist, and she hates to perform. She is such a musician in my opinion. She is like your typical orchestral musician. She wears these long flowy clothes, and sometimes her hair is blue and sometimes her hair is black, and she's artistic, but she really doesn't want to talk to the strangers that want to come up and talk to she doesn't want to talk to strangers. Her music is her thing, and then these people come and they're invading her space, and but she is very good, but she's nervous about playing in front of people. But that's our quartet. And it's fun because we play such a variety. We play... So Alanda likes classical music. So she brings a little bit of a classical bend to almost everything we do. And Bill Varutis, he likes jazz, but everything but jazz is sort of his thing. And Rob likes the rock, the classics, the standards.
Yep.
And I like musical theater. So our band is called Strawberry Lemonade and the Preferences. And we all put in the flavors of the kind of music that we like into whatever song we're doing. So very rarely is it going to sound like the album. Sometimes we just say, hey, this is great as it is. But a lot of the times we put our own thing into it. And I'm really surprised that I like being in this band. I don't think I'd like being in other bands, but I like this one.
But you spent the last several weeks in studio recording a number of tracks.
Yeah, just for fun. We want to get up a Facebook page. We don't necessarily want to be really busy with our band. I mean, Bill's retired and Alanda teaches in Oakville, and I have a lot of responsibilities here. I've got a new puppy and 4 kids. So.
Oh, and 4 kids.
And this husband who's super high maintenance.
You're fired.
So we don't necessarily want to be out a couple times a week or going out on tour for long periods of time, but we would like to have the opportunity to perform more than we do. So we're thinking of putting up a webpage, and so we wanted some recordings because people always ask for them.
So you're performing basically every Wednesday over at Amiga's. You do?
No, I don't perform at Amiga's.
Yeah,
on
that's
Wednesday.
what you always say. But
Wednesdays is an open floor. Anybody can join. So Rob and I are sort of the standard. We're there all the time. And when there's nobody else, we do our stuff. But people come, like we have some of the people from Joy Bakery.
Yep.
Coming and singing with us, and some of the people at Amiga's will sing with us, and sometimes some teachers will come, and some of my theater friends will come, and I had a friend from high school who played the trombone come and play his trombone, and a harp player from Brantford. And so it's not a performance. It's an open floor for local musicians to just have a moment, come onto the floor, perform, show off. We're totally cool with that, and it doesn't have to be polished. It doesn't have to be excellent. It's just for fun.
At this point in the interview, my children got a little bit rangy, so we had to stop and get them to bed. So we don't really have any more from here, But the best way to end an interview with Meredith Wood is to play her singing a show tune. So from Jekyll and Hyde, this is Dangerous Game.
I